Hey, Vince Palomar here again. Back by popular demand. People seem to really like some of my outdoor videos. You can hear the birds chirping, see the beautiful sky, see the trees behind me, all that kind of stuff. Something different. It's kind of like my fireside chat, but it's not fireside, it's sunside, sky side, nature side. But anyway, just want to go over a few things. It's all personal opinion, but my 5 favorite JFK assassination books to start out with. I've read hundreds. Truly, I have many books in my library. You probably saw another video, it's been updated since, but it shows my collection. I have quite a few JFK assassination books, Secret Service and related books too. And yeah, like I said, I've read all the classics, I've read all the authors since that time, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, New Millennium and beyond. And while there's many books that have a lot to offer, there's a lot of books that in my opinion are very dated now. That they were good for the time, but in all due respect, just again, it's just dated. Yes, what our level of knowledge was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, before the Assassination Records Review Board, for the file releases, etc., etc. Well, with all that in mind, here are my top 5 JFK assassination books. In no particular order, although I would say this one's my favorite. Very favorite. This is The JFK Assassination by author and genius James D. Eugenio. This used to be called Reclaiming Parkland. This is the updated paperback edition from 2018 with a foreword by Oliver Stone, who is obviously with Jim D. Eugenio, came up with a terrific 2-hour JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass, and there's the 4-hour version. I forget the exact title, might have jumbled them up, but the 2-hour version's terrific and the 4-hour version's even better. And that's coming out next month. Today's date is June 10th, 2022. Any event, this book is just fantastic. Very well written, witty, funny. Yes, he takes on Reclaiming History by Vince Bugliosi, but so much more. It's excellent on the whole case, and like witty, well written, funny in parts. Just really, really recommend this. Couldn't recommend this higher, stronger, or whatever. It's over 500 pages. You can tell it's not scripted, so you're gonna get the ums and ahs and little errors like that. But who cares, right? You love it. Second amazing book. This came out last year, 2021. Last Second in Dallas by Josiah Tink Thompson. A masterpiece. Really, truly is. To put my faith back into the House Select Committee's acoustic evidence. I kind of had given up the ship on that, as I say in my latest book, Honest Answers. I thought, well, there isn't any shots on that, just wishful thinking and that, but this really puts it back. And more importantly than even the acoustic evidence is he definitely shows the shot came from the front, and it appears there was 2 headshots. Now some of that at first glance might think, well, Vince, we already knew that, I've learned it from other books. You have to read this. This is a masterpiece, trust me. Even sometimes if it's something you already know or think you know, there's an entirely different level, and there's so many more nuances in here. And like I said, I just can't recommend this one enough as well. And another one of my top 5, might be a little surprising, I don't know. The Lee Harvey Oswald Files, and that is by Flip DeMay, and I think he's from Belgium, I think so. If I'm looking, sorry, Flip, if I got your country wrong, but this is brilliant. His first book, Cold Case Kennedy, is very good as well. This one's even better. As I also relate and give him proper attribution in my book, Honest Answers, it shows that there's no way that Oswald's rifle could have fired the fatal shots, among other things. It's just amazing. Again, you might hear that and say, well, Vince, I already kind of knew that from other books too. Trust me, there's a lot of details in there that are amazing. As I also source in my book, like I said, Honest Answers about the murder of President Kennedy. Highly recommended, very well written, very well researched. So far, Flip DeMay's book, Last Second in Dallas by Josiah Thompson. And then, like I said, there's JFK Assassination by Jim D. Eugenio. Okay, two more. This one's a little harder to find. I don't know if it's on Kindle yet or not, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The Warren Omission by Walt Braun. Just amazing, amazing book from 1996. Honored to have a signed copy of this. You can sometimes find this on eBay. I think you can still get this through Walt Braun himself, through his website. Just Google Walt Braun JFK. His website comes up. Brilliant, really is. And just, again, when you hear these things, you might say, Vince, I already knew this as well. It's a total demolishment, is that a word? He demolishes the Warren Commission report and volumes. He does a terrific job, very witty and well written and funny in places, of dissecting the report and the volumes. He gets all the salient points. He doesn't skip over or cherry pick. It's virtually page by page. Walt Braun is the guru when it comes to the Warren Commission report, the 888-page report, and the 26 volumes of hearings and exhibits. And again, don't be scared off when you hear these things that might think at first glance, Vince, I already knew that. Trust me, you didn't. You have to get this book. And by the way, I like the way the sky came out when I moved a little bit. Oh well, it's not doing it now. But anyway, got to get this. It's amazing if you don't already own it. Okay. Again, top 5. Many amazing books. So don't take it the wrong way if I'm omitting anything. A lot of terrific books out there, a lot of terrific authors, just my opinion, after reading hundreds of books and whatnot. The Girl on the Stairs by Barry Ernest. Amazing book. Truly is. And it demonstrates that Oswald wasn't on the 6th floor. If Flip DeMay's book, The Lee Harvey Oswald File, proves that Oswald's rifle couldn't have done it, and indirectly shows he wasn't on the 6th floor, this book really does. Barry Ernest is amazing. He tracked down Victoria Adams, Sandra Stiles, their boss, name eludes me right now. Is it Dorothy Garner? Is that it? Sorry, off the top of my head. But amazing. Years of research here, decades really, and it's his journey. It's written like, sort of like Lifton, who ironically did the foreword. It's kind of written in like a Lifton style. It shows, it's his tale of what he went through, his journey in the case. And yeah, really amazing. And trying to get that sky to pop. Oh, there it is. Got the sky to pop out a little bit. I don't know if you saw that or not. There it is, there it is. I hope it's like the whole video. That's beautiful with the sky in the background. I don't know if it goes away when I move back, but in any event, top 5 for me. Really, really amazing books. Books that I've reread. You know, sometimes you get a book and once is enough, or you just research it, you skim read it and never look at it again. These books I've read multiple times. So they're, dare I say, entertaining as well. And although I've done this before, I'm going to go through a little more detail on something else. Let me just put these down real quick. Okay. Go through my books, maybe a little more detail, just like the number 5. Well, I've written 5 books. First one, Survivor's Guilt, the Secret Service and the Fear to Protect President Kennedy. And this came out in 2013. Now, I had privately published a version back in 1993, technically 1991, but it was called For National Security, and I scrapped it. Very few people on earth saw that one. Came out in 1993, used to be a spiral bound Kinko's type of affair. Then it made it to online. It was free for a while, but then I massively updated, expanded, corrected it, and obviously overtly published it. It sold quite a few copies. For an independent publisher, I mean, this thing has sold well over 5,000 copies since 2013 in Kindle and paperback. Now that's modest compared to somebody like Clint Hill now, but he's a principal in the case on the biggest publishing company on earth, so it's done a damn good job of getting around. And more importantly than that, the reaction's been really good. This is my decades long. I interviewed and corresponded with many of the agents who guarded or signed to President Kennedy, and by default, agents that protected presidents down to FDR and up to Reagan. And I'm very proud of this book. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this. And what it does is it shows that President Kennedy did not order the agents off his car, did not order the bubble top off, did not order the motorcycles away, did not demand the trademark as the cited assassination, etc. It also reveals many new details a lot of people didn't know. Many people thought that building rooftops were only guarded. Oh, it's a response to the assassination events. That only came about afterwards. Or they say, well, maybe in Washington, D.C. during inaugurals, but that's it. Turns out my research, and a lot of the things came out after this book actually that corroborate even further. That's the first thing from the truth. As Ron Gardner told many millions of people on November 22nd on ABC, I have a video of that on my channel here. For many presidents prior to JFK, building rooftops were guarded. That was common. And more important than even him saying that to millions of people, I actually have photos, films, and many newspaper articles and Secret Service documents that shows building rooftops were guarded by either police and or agents. This is separate from police and or military guarding the streets and the crowds, intermingling in the crowds, whatnot, undercover cops and whatnot. They did this many times through many different cities across America. So there's that. And yeah, and like again, it also shows that the Secret Service was the only boss the President of the United States really had. And that comes from Harry Truman, Lyndon Johnson, Bill Clinton. Many people thought, well, these are just lowly Secret Service agents. Hey, the President is the boss. When it comes to his security, he is not. And Clinton even admitted that, well, the President can tell you what he wants done. That doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we always used to do is listen to the President and did what we felt was best anyway. He said that in 2010 in a very obscure video I found. It's also on my channel, and I quote from it here. See, there's an old saying, I think it was Keith Moon who said, they remember your exits and your entrances and everything else in between doesn't matter. Well, I found that a lot of times with the assassination and whatnot, you know, when it comes to President Kennedy, they have gobs of film on the inauguration, the inaugural motorcade, and obviously on the assassination. But in between, it was very hard to find for many years. In fact, it's only been the last 5 or 10 years that a lot of films and photos have come forward. Just because of digitization, just because the copyright laws have relaxed, a lot of the photographers, especially Cecil Stoughton and the White House photographers, plural, have passed on and made their stuff public domains, you know, to pay massive fees and whatnot. So much of this material is available, you know, for public domain. It's on the internet and whatnot. And I can tell you honestly, with a straight face, it's been the last 5 to 7 years or so, maybe a little bit more in certain cases, where a lot of these films and photos have finally been available. So back in the 90s when I was writing, it was very few and far between to find photos and films of prior motorcades. Until the Assassination Records Review Board released documents, Secret Service documents and whatnot, it was extremely hard to get any Secret Service records to corroborate anything about prior motorcades. And yeah, so it used to just be like, you know, you go off interviews and whatnot, and you had what you had out there as far as, you know, William Manchester and Jim Bishop and whatnot, but they were very misleading because they believed Oswald did it. They tried to shoehorn everything into kind of a situation where they blamed President Kennedy for ordering agents off the car, ordering the motorcycles away, ordering the bubble top away, which is all bull. But what it did is, for many years, these materials were hard to find. And it also didn't help that in 1995, the Secret Service destroyed presidential protective records after they were asked for them by the review board. So when these materials have become available in the last several years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, it's just amazing. Not just the JFK library, but all online, and people are just digitizing things. It used to be, you know, back in the old days, it used to be scanners or poor quality cell phone. It might have been digital, but a lot of stuff was blurry. Now everything's crystal clear and pristine. Again, because copyright laws have been relaxed, you know, you can put copyrighted photos on Facebook. Pinterest has millions and millions, probably billions of photos of copyrighted images. The point being is, now it's so much easier to find these films and photos. Oh, that was the other thing that popped in my head I couldn't remember now. There's also newspapers.com and similar sites where, for a fee, you can get old newspaper clippings, and that's where I found some amazing stuff about JFK's motorcade. Was covered by the rooftops in Nashville and Milwaukee and Paris, France. The list goes on, so there you go. It's all my interviews and correspondence. Many of these agents have passed away. About 500 pages, there you go. Second book, this came out 2 years later in 2015, JFK from Parkland to Bethesda. The Ultimate Kennedy Assassination Compilation. This is done very well as well. It's sold roughly around the same amount of copies so far to date, and the reaction's been good. This was actually available since around 1998. It used to be called JFK, the Medical Evidence Ref. Well, I've also spruced this up and updated it and obviously published it above board. And what this is a reaction to what happened. I finally kind of got frustrated because I'd read books by some very good authors and researchers and whatnot, and they would always say stuff like, oh, 26 doctors said the back of the head was gone, and X amount of doctors said the throat wound was an entrance wound, etc., etc. But I'd get frustrated because they'd show a few examples, then they'd cut away and change the subject. And I wanted to know exactly who said what, when they said it, and how many times they say it. So what I compiled here is literally every time Dr. McClellan, Dr. Perry, Dr. Jenkins, Ronald Coy Jones, Nurse Audrey Bell, etc., 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 has spoken about the wounds. Any change in their testimony and in their interviews, you know, as far as were they influenced by Posner and whatnot, Bugliosi to a certain extent. Somebody like Jenkins, you could really see that, because from 1963 to 1978, he was basically a friend of the research community, the critical community, the conspiracy community. Then from that time on, especially when Posner came out, he started to change his tune, saying, it wasn't cerebellum, I never said cerebellum. And he'd move the wound, and other people like James Carragher sadly did that as well. But the bottom line, this is also proof of a conspiracy, because the overwhelming majority of the medical witnesses said the back, right rear of the head was gone. Many of them said this was a throat wound, was an entrance wound. Several witnesses said it was either a right or left temple. Sometimes they might have just mixed up left or right, depending on their view of the president laying there. That a shot came from the front. Many of them said a shot came from the front. I interviewed on video Gerald Custer, who was from the Pittsburgh area. He died in the year 2000. Excuse me. And yeah, it's quite a coup, pardon the phrase. Being from Pittsburgh, I filmed him on video for what ended up in High Treason 2 by Harry Livingstone. We filmed it on November 22nd, 1991. And I also filmed it over 2 days for William Law's amazing book, In the Eye of History. That'd probably be top 10 for me. And he passed away in 2000, the year 2000, but I got him on video. I also got on video Aubrey Reich, and that was back on November 22nd, 1997 in Dallas. And he said the back of the head was gone. Gerald Custer was an interesting one for many years. He said the back of the head was gone. Now, he still believed there was a conspiracy in frontal shots, but he started to change his tune because he was influenced by the late Tom Wilson, who also died in 2000, who also lived close by to him. And he started to move the wound a little closer to the front and stuff. He was influenced by Tom Wilson in a bad way, but I'm getting off on a tangent. Now, the first book was mainly phone interviews and correspondence, as these guys would never have consented to being on video. And this was back, you know, in the days when I was a young guy in my 20s and 30s, and I didn't have the wherewithal and the money to fly around and try to get these guys on video. They would flat out refuse me anyway, but I was a young guy on the phone or in correspondence, so that's how they would get through them, you know, the phone, email. And this one was mainly correspondence, very little phone work, but it was a couple videos like I just told you. So that's that. Okay, this is my third book, The Not So Secret Service, Agency Tales from FDR to the Kennedy Assassination of the Reagan Era. This also came out 2 years later, so the first one was 2013, the second one was 2015, this is 2017. And this is kind of like a loose ends of my first book, Survivor's Guilt. Things that came out since, things that corroborate items in that book and other things. And I briefly talk about the other presidents, FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, you know, LBJ, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, basically. But there's no doubt it's basically the loose ends. It's done pretty well. It's a little bit of a mixed reaction on Amazon and whatnot. And it's mainly because it's only a little over 200 pages, and it succeeds from a research standpoint, but from a book standpoint, it's a little up and down, I admit. Although probably the greatest claim to fame in this was that my first chapter on Thomas B. Shipman, okay? Tom Shipman died October 14th, 1963. It was my major discovery. No one basically knew, for all intents and purposes, in the research community and the world at large, that a JFK Secret Service agent died unexpectedly before the assassination, not after. He died about a month before, and there's so many details. I could talk all day about him. I have a video on YouTube where I dissect everything. It's largely a silent video, like a PowerPoint video. There's a tiny bit of audio in there, but the main thing is, again, this gentleman, Thomas B. Shipman, was one of Kennedy's drivers, and he was looking forward to the Dallas trip. He had family in Dallas, and he was worried about the president's safety, but the bottom line is he died, and that allowed Bill Greer to drive Kennedy. Very suspicious death. He's the only person who ever died at Camp David. He died allegedly of a heart attack. Yeah, he just passed an annual physical, and agents have to pass annual physicals, and also this agent was something else because he drove presidents. So you really have to be healthy. He took his annual physical, everything was fine. The family was shocked, to put it mildly. He died. He died at Camp David too. There was very little press about it. I'll get to that in a second. He was buried very fast, like a couple days after he died, he was buried, boom, that's it. The family said they were urged to bury him quickly. Dr. Berkeley took care of it. And the family didn't throw any wet rags on. I spoke to his daughter and other relatives, and they all find it suspicious. And, you know, they weren't looking for remuneration or publicity whatsoever. I contacted them, they didn't contact me, and they were hidden then, and they're still hidden. It is what it is, but Gary Byrne, former Secret Service officer under Clinton, he wrote like a #1 major bestseller on the Clintons. I think it was Crisis of Character? Yeah. Well, he quotes from the book. That's probably the major claim to fame on this one. But a little bit of a mixed reactions. Good research, but as a book, it's kind of up and down. Okay. I'm really proud of this one. This came out in 2018. Who's Who in the Secret Service? History's Most Renowned Agents. But here's the problem. A huge rebound over this as far as book goes, book quality. Very proud of it. Of all 5 of my books, this one stiffed. It's only sold several hundred copies, to be honest with you. I guess what it is no one really cares about the Secret Service. You know, what's the Secret Service in the context of the assassination, like Survivor's Guilt. Okay, you know, that does well. Okay, that also came out in the 50th anniversary, and that didn't hurt. But I don't know, for some reason this didn't capture people's imagination, but I'm very proud of it. I really am. And again, it's all the good, bad, ugly, famous, infamous agents of the Secret Service, literally from the beginning, as most people know. The Secret Service, ironically, was formed by Secretary of the Treasury Hugh McCullough right before Abraham Lincoln left for Ford's Theater. He basically approved what became the Secret Service. Lincoln was assassinated, and the rest is history. And this goes up to Trump because it came out in 2018, so it's all the best, famous, bad. And there's a lot of stuff obviously related to Kennedy in this, and it's worth it if you're a Kennedy assassination research or whatnot for the appendices in the back, because it's a good synopsis, Cliff Notes version of Secret Service failed President Kennedy, and it gives all the reasons why. You know, it's a picture of Michael Payne and Lee Harvey Oswald. Many people thought they kind of looked alike, to put it mildly. That's in our story. But yeah, I'm very proud of it, but it kind of stiffs. But it does have one major claim to fame, before I forget. The #1 major bestseller last year, what the heck was it called? Wow, I am forgetting her title of her book right now. I was going to call it Epic Fail, but I forget what it's called. It's Carol Leonig's major book on, this is what I mean by unscripted, this is off the cuff. Carol Leonig's massive #1 bestseller about the Secret Service that came out last year. Well, anyway, she quotes from this book, so even though it's stiffed, you know, many people heard of it indirectly because they read the title and whatnot. But anyway, comes to my last one. Could literally be my last one, because I don't know what else I could say about the assassination and Secret Service. I've said it all. I mean, at this point, I'd just be repeating myself. But never say never. Honest Answers about the murder of President Kennedy, a new look at the JFK assassination, came out just last year, 2021. Big rebound of her last 2 books. It's done better than those 2 books combined. And it's doing as well as the first 2 books, not only in sales, but more importantly in reaction from people. It's doing really, really well. And I thank you for all the reaction to all of the books, actually. Proud of them all, but this one's really good. This one is my take on the assassination. What happened was, I thought mainly because it's stiffed, but also I thought I said it all. Okay, this was going to be a fourth and final book. But what happened was my cousin Marianne, we visited her right before, ironically, COVID hit in early 2020. Excuse me, and she said, Vin, I want to know who killed Kennedy. Now, she's a rank amateur, she's not a researcher or nothing. I didn't have a good answer for her. I kind of gave her a schlock answer about the CIA and whatnot, but I didn't really feel confident. I was like, you know what? A light bulb went on. I got to tackle the assassination in general, not just the Secret Service angle. Well, that same night, I found out that Robert Conrad passed away, who's my idol, and he's one of the reasons I got into this whole thing. Now, you might say to yourself, what does Robert Conrad have to do with anything? Well, here's what he has to do. He played James West, a fictional Secret Service agent. Oh, back in 1978, I was 12 years old, and the House Select Committee on Assassination was going on, and I was very curious about that, I remember news reports about Jack Ruby and evidence of conspiracy. Well, that was all going on, kind of, tickling my imagination. I also collected stamps and coins whenever I come across a picture of Kennedy on a stamp or coin. Mom and Dad were still doing great, by the way, in their 80s, and they would regale me stories about his life and tragic death. Well, then what happened after that was I started getting into reruns of the Wild Wild West, which was a fictional take on the Secret Service. But what happened was the two melted together, so to speak. The Secret Service and the assassination. Oh, this guy's popping out a little bit. Now I got to do that again. Get that, trying to get that sky to pop behind me. Man, it's got to just do something like that. But anyway, that was just silly. But anyway, so what happened was I got out of my middle school library the book 4 Days. It was UPI or AP right off the top of my head. But anyway, there was a nice colored picture of Clint Hill by the limousine. It's a famous one you've all seen. And you can see Sam Kinney, the driver of the fall car, behind him. I remember talking to my mom and dad about it, especially my mom. And who would have think one day I would interview several times Sam Kinney and speak to him on the phone, Clint Hill, and correspond with him. And Clint Hill would mention me twice on television. It's surreal. But I just became fascinated with the men around the president. I mean, it got to the point where when I'd see a Secret Service documentary on TV, a news special, a photo of him, I'd look past President Kennedy, look at the agents, and then eventually I learned their names. Eventually I spoke to them, corresponded with them, so on and so forth, became the Secret Service expert. Oh, by the way, some people say, oh, Vince, you're a self-described expert. No, I'm not. The Assassination Records Review Board called me a Secret Service expert. The History Channel and Newsmax TV called me a Secret Service expert. Vince Bugliosi, of all people, called me a Secret Service expert. So did many other people. So it's not self-described. It's by default. I work for a living, even though my books have done well and whatnot. People have this misnomer where they think, hey, you're an author, man. What are you doing working for a living? Well, you don't make consistent money enough to pay rent, mortgage, bills, unless you're like a Harry Potter author or something like a romance novel or whatnot. It just, by and large, you're working for a living as a professor, lawyer, or whatnot, and doing that on the side. So I'm not in this for the money. It's labor of love and truth. But anyway, I just want to point that out because sometimes some of my critics like Gerald Blaine and Clint Hill and whatnot said self-described expert. Well, other people don't describe me. Oh, real quick, you're wondering about Newsmax. I'm a diehard Democrat and I'm not into, well, I won't get into that, but you know by me saying by being diehard Democrat where my heart lies. Well, Newsmax TV started to show reruns of The Men Who Killed Kennedy. Yeah, I was on The Men Who Killed Kennedy in 2003, the 40th anniversary. History Channel showed it 4 times the major ratings, excuse me, and also the DVD sold 50,000 copies. I didn't see a penny, but again, I'm not in this for the money. The point being, it really got out there. Well, for years, it wasn't around anymore. The DVDs got taken away and whatnot. Don't get it. I think, because of, former presidents Gerald Ford, Carter, and some of the LBJ family were incensed by Part 9. I was on Part 7. Judith Bagler was on Part 8, but anyway, it was mainly Part 9 that buried Deep 6, 7, 8, and 9. And it wasn't until Newsmax TV in 2019 started to show my episode and the other episodes, and they started to show them in 2020 again. So I've been on Newsmax TV, I don't know how many times where they show The Men Who Killed Kennedy, but I'm very proud. That was 3.5 minutes. I was filmed 16 hours over 2 days, and Nigel Turner whittled me down to like 3.5 minutes. Did a good job though, but I'm really proud of my appearance on A COUP in Camelot, which is a DVD, Blu ray, and it's also available on streaming and Amazon. You can watch on your television on Amazon Prime if you don't have the DVD and Blu ray. I got about roughly 14 to 15 minutes on there, and the great narrator and actor Peter Coyote It's wild, surreal hearing my name from that guy. I've seen so many documentaries of him narrating. What a wonderful voice. He was on the CNN documentary about the 60s, etc., etc. I remember in 1982, I digress, I wanted to see Rocky 3 when my parents said, no, we're going to see E.T. and who's in there, Peter Coyote, and who would think one day this guy would say my name several times and narrate my videotape segment. Yes, you can actually see me for good, I don't know, 13, 14 minutes overall. But anyway, I'm very proud of that because it's updated. It was done in 2013, came out in 2016. It's a really good analysis of my Secret Service research. My segment is on the main video on my YouTube channel, and I'll probably link that and several other ones. And I'm going to link my 2019 presentation. I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, I'm digressing way too much. Again, 5th book, Honest Answers about the Murder of President Kennedy. What I wanted to do was kind of answer my cousin Marianne, but also have a kind of come to Jesus moment and realize that we don't have all the answers. This is Honest Answers for a reason. It's not trying to infer other books and other things. We're not honest, we're dishonest. I'm just trying to say this is what we know, stay the case. What we don't know, we're probably never going to know. So you're going to see some maybes. Not everything is definitive. I admit there's things I don't know, we're probably never going to know. The good news is we can definitely prove a conspiracy. I think it's solid. The first 2 chapters are worth the price of admission alone. Maybe some of the appendices as well. The master list of witnesses indicated JFK was shot from the front, and so on and so forth. It's got the mother of all bibliographies. It's over 1,000 books have been written on the assassination, and there's been more because this is about the 2021. But the point being is, it's very well illustrated, very well researched and documented. It's my take on the case in general. So you come away going, wow, there's no doubt there's a conspiracy. The bad news is why I named suspects who I think was involved, the organization and the people, can't prove it. Never are we gonna be able to prove who shot President Kennedy. We're never gonna declaratively, in my opinion, state who was behind it. We're strongly suspect, but that's it. But the good thing is, we can demonstrate that Oswald didn't act alone. In my opinion, didn't act at all. He was not a shooter. He could have been involved, but he wasn't a shooter. He may or may not have killed Tippit, but that's not what you think. In my opinion, I share Andy Purdy, the House Select Committee's opinion. I think that J.D. Tippit was the first Ruby, so to speak. Imagine if J.D. Tippit shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald before Oswald was on record saying anything. Well, I think a lot of people just take it as the gospel, even more so. They were, Oswald acted alone. This brave police officer shot and killed him. There's more to it than that. You have to read the book. But yeah, I have photos that have never seen the light of day, never been published. A lot of new information, so it's not a rehash. But it's the depth of my research and knowledge and all the books I've read and everything I've uncovered. But it's, my take on things. So you're going to get a lot of information. People have read this and said it's been the overwhelming reaction has been, boy, Vince, a good book is a great book, etc., etc. But they also say there's some things that I did not know. I thought it was going to be a rehash of stuff I already knew. It's not. It pointedly is not. And just like my other books, I tried to be as thorough as possible with it. But this might, be similar to what I said in the last video. But it's probably it for me when it comes to conferences. I really think I've taken conferences as far as they can go. I'm not going to be in the habit of just going up to the dais and just repeat myself over and over again, especially when there's YouTube and video and whatnot, and DVDs and Blu-rays. I mean, my major conference appearances, 1991, I was at Fredonia, New York, the Third Decade Conference with Harry Livingstone, Professor Jerry Rose, George Michael Weaver, Bob Cutler, etc., etc. Okay, that was my debut. I was just turned 25. In 1992, the American Popular Culture Conference in Louisville, Kentucky with George Ivica again. In 1995 at COPA in Washington, D.C. In 1996 at COPA again in Washington, D.C. In 1997, November 22nd, 1997, I spoke at Dallas, Texas, JFK Lancer Conference. Did some various local things, whatnot, cable access, and I spoke at Slippery Rock University and whatnot. Well, again, I mentioned about the man who killed Kennedy back in 2003. That also was on Newsmax TV recently.
You also have a COUP in Camelot DVD, Blu-ray streaming. It's on Amazon Prime. 2016, I spoke at Judith Baker's Trine Day conference, and here's what I'm leading to. In 2019, I did the mother of all conference appearances at Judith Baker's Trine Day conference. That's my best one. Conference presentation, that's it. I'll put a link to it here because some people have said they've had trouble finding it. I don't know why. You just go to videos on my channel. Go to my channel, go to videos, and then over here on the right is an hourglass. You type in what you need to type in, it should pop up, but I also have playlists that show up, but I will, I'll put the link on here just so people have easier access. But yeah, it's a conference presentation, that's it. I won't roll this out, but I've kind of said everything I can when it comes to radio, Skype shows, all that stuff, internet radio, radio in general. And they're all on there. So many things are archived online at the host's website and also on YouTube, like Brent Holland's brilliant show and all the Leno Sanic Black Op radios and so on and so forth. So I've done all that. And I'm always going to have an interest in the case. I kept on thinking that was it for videos. I found a few more. Maybe I'll always find videos here and there. Or maybe I'll just resort to making these kind of videos every once in a while. Who knows? But I feel like we're kind of maxed out on where we can go with this case. So many people have passed away. We're not trying to be a bummer, just being realistic. So many people have passed away. Okay, there's only so far I can take this because, again, so many people passed away. So much time has passed. We all know by now, if you didn't know already, the government's never going to do anything about it. The sad reality, which does make me sad, this part, is that at the end of the day, history books, so to speak, high school textbooks, whatnot, are always going to say Oswald. The only thing I think we did get is we got the word alleged in there. And sometimes there's a little footnote or sentence about the controversy. So we got that in there. But it's sad to say they won. They won. You know, it is what it is. We've had the Warren Commission, the House Select Committee that found a probable conspiracy. We've had the Assassination Records Review Board that did a not-so-secret medical investigation, which is brilliant, right? Doug Bourne and whatnot. His books would be in my top 10 as well. We're waiting for David Lifton's follow-up book. He swears he's working on it. He swears it's going to be released, but David looks great, but he's in his 80s. He better come out with it soon. I mean, what the heck? Yeah, but anyway. So I feel we're never going to get justice for JFK. We're never going to know the full truth. We're never going to know who the shooters are. In my opinion, we're never going to know exactly who was behind it, other than suspicion. We'll be able to prove a conspiracy, which my last book does. But the unsatisfying thing for John Q. Citizen is they want to know who killed Kennedy. You know what I'm saying? They want to know exactly who was the shooter behind the picket fence or in front, whatever. And they want to know exactly who the mastermind or masterminds were. And you know, you can sit here like a parlor game and name people off. You might even have good evidence of it to a certain extent. I use evidence in quotes, but can you prove in a court of law that this person was the shooter or this person was behind it? In my opinion, you can't. At least by the rigid standards of today and all the times I've seen. Court TV, True TV, other type of things on television, whatnot, even just going through the, I shouldn't bring this up, like the OJ case and whatnot, but the bottom line is that's why it's kind of unsatisfying, that's why it's circular. You know, we can show there's a conspiracy, but we can't nail it down. John Q. Citizen, they're in the sound bites, they have a low attention span, they want to know who killed Kennedy, then they want to change the channel and watch the Cowboys game or the Steelers game. You know, you get my drift. That's why, in one respect, we had the Oliver Stone movie came out in 1991, and it definitely energized people. The movie did amazingly well. It created the Assassination Records Review Board, and all those files were released because of the JFK Records Act. But dare I say, many of those same people, probably the next morning, they woke up and they were like, "Hey, who's playing on NBC tonight and whatnot? You know, football and whatnot." I mean, that's just a sad, cold reality. You know, other people that write about the case, research it, are massively into it. Even people like us, still. You know, so many people have other lives. They have bills to pay, mortgage, rent, children, jobs, other things going on, health concerns, the list goes on. So it's easy to get obsessed and all into the case, but you got to realize there's only so much you can do. There's only so much individual people can do. There's a lot of constraints on the case. And again, what we can know, this is 2022. And
Another thing too, like I said in my last video, we're never gonna agree. We will never know the whole truth. We're never gonna know the shooters. In my opinion, probably never gonna know who was behind it, but we're never gonna agree. I always use this little scenario. Imagine if the fantasy came true and the government admitted there was a conspiracy, but they came out with something real conservative. They just said, yeah, it was Oswald and a couple Cubans and Ruby, and that was it. Even if it turned out that was true, do you know how many people, especially in the research community, wouldn't believe it? It's just a limited hangout. This is bullshit. It's my suspect. And put this under here, whatever your suspect is, FBI, Mafia, CIA, etc., the Illuminati, all that stuff. So you got that. So even if the fantasy did come true, it's still not going to satisfy people because people do not agree. Now, where the level of scholarship has gone way up, the books in the last 5, 10, 15 years or so, maybe a little longer, since the Assassination Record Review Board have come out, are better than all the other books in the past combined. And I say that with all due respect. I mean, those books are amazing, legendary, by Harold Weisberg, Mark Lane, and whatnot. If it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be us. So I hold those people in tremendous respect and value, and they're the Hall of Famers. But, yeah, it was limited access and knowledge at the time. Sometimes before the internet, before the Assassination Record Review Board, there was a guessing game, theorizing. There was so much stuff that was under lock and key, so to speak, in the archives and whatnot. People want things that were not accessible, which leads me up to another thing that's kind of disturbing. I have a TikTok channel. It's doing very well. It does very well with Kennedy images, videos, whatnot, and very happy about that. That's the good news. But the bad news is, and I think I brought this up the last time, John Q. Citizen again. Many people believe there's a conspiracy, although supposedly polls are not as big as they used to be on the case, like what people believe and whatnot. The thing that's really depressing to me is how many people believe that Greer shot Kennedy. I'm so sick of hearing that. The average person on the street believes there's a conspiracy. They always thought, yeah, I think the driver shot Kennedy. In crystal clear copies of the Greer film, even on decent copies of the Greer film, you can see Greer's not turning around with a pistol and shooting Kennedy. It's the bro cream. It's the sunlight off Roy Kellerman's forehead. Do we even have to get into the manner and logic of it? Do we really need to get into what the people in the car said? And all the years afterwards that Greer was living, all these other people were living, Jackie Kennedy, the Connollys, no one ever said anything. No one ever came forward and said, Jesus, it was the driver in front of us who shot at him. You know, the witnesses, some people try to like shoehorn a witness or two and said it came from within the car. That means it came from within the car. But the bottom line is, this theory just will not die. It's in my opinion, it's the #1 theory out there. For crap, but for popularity, I'd say hands down, the driver shot Kennedy is the #1 theory. That's based on what I've seen on TikTok, what I've seen on YouTube, what I've seen online in general. It's obscene. To a lesser extent, the other thing, it's a crappy theory, except for one caveat, is the whole George Hickey shooting Kennedy. Now, the only thing that's good about that is the original proponent of this was the late Howard Donahue, who I spoke to and corresponded, by the way, in ironically Small World. He served in the Air Force unit at World War II with Rufus Youngblood, Small World. Well, he believed that George Hickey accidentally killed Kennedy, because he said there's no way that shot came from Oswald's rifle, the type of wound and the direction and whatnot, but because Howard Donahue believed his government, okay, he fought and saw a benign reason for the assassination. So he thought, well, it was George Hickey and it was an accident, so that was his solution. But the good thing about his theory is it shows through ballistic evidence that the fatal shot did not come from Oswald's rifle. So that's the only caveat to his theory, just like the smoking gun, that Rios documentary. Colin McLaren, who I spoke to, I think I'm on one page of his book, he carried it further after Howard Donahue passed away. The whole thing about George Hickey shooting Kennedy, and that's like the second most popular theory. So I do not believe George Hickey shot the president. That's moronic. But the good thing about his theory is he demonstrates through ballistic evidence there's no way the fatal shot came from Oswald's rifle. Some other obscene theories, I guess the one that comes to mind, some people think Jackie shot Kennedy. I've seen ones where the Connollys shot Kennedy. It's the Jackie shooting Kennedy, horrible. The Connolly shooting Kennedy, horrible. I've seen someone was in the trunk of the limousine and shot Kennedy. I've seen all that stupid QAnon crap that JFK still loves, those JFK Jr. and stupid stuff. People just get into these things where they just want to believe. It's almost like an act of faith, you know. They say we're like all into faith and belief and whatnot. It's these wackadoos that believe this stuff. It's crazy. So it pollutes the community, makes us look bad, because then we look like tinfoil hat people, conspiracy theorists and whatnot. But there you go. So that's the state of the case in 2022. My 5 favorite books. Little synopsis of my 5 books, the state of the case and where I'm at, where I'm going with it. I view myself as basically semi-retired. I feel like I've taken as far as I could go. I really have. I'll always have an interest. My books will always be available on Kindle and paperback, God willing, on my YouTube, and on massive presence online. I would never say never to another book or whatnot, but I think I've taken as far as I can go. Now, I think eat my words before, because I thought I was done after my 3rd book, 4th book, whatnot. In fact, I didn't envision any book beyond my 1st book. It was all kind of a fluke that the other books came to be. But in my mind, I'd just be repeating myself. I've said everything I can. But you can still have an interest in the case, and when I read them, just like you guys, not everybody writes books and appears at conferences, other than maybe in the stands and the seats. So, anyway. Yeah, let's get the sun to pop out again. I don't think it does it or not, or maybe it's doing it the whole time. From here, every once in a while, the sky kind of pops out, depending on where I'm. Wait there, I think it did it. All right, sorry for being goofy, and this is totally unscripted, as if you couldn't tell by now. And this is Vince Palliner signing off. Thanks.